am I? It's been a year, so this is very long overdue, but finally time I talk about the evacuation. So for some context of where we were at, last March, the COVID-19 pandemic was really starting to come into effect, starting to hit a lot of places. But we in the Gambia thought the idea that we would be evacuated was laughable. The main reason being we felt a lot safer there than in America, because it wasn't spreading throughout large portions of Africa, it was spreading throughout America, and would continue to follow that trend of being a much bigger problem in America than Africa. We had been getting a lot of updates about the coronavirus and the situation around it, but we just didn't feel like it was likely to come there, and thus thought our service wasn't going to be affected. In fact, on the 14th, the Friday before, I was actually running a training session for some of the new in-service training volunteers. And it wasn't until that night that things really started to feel sketch. On the way home from running that training, I received a call from the safety and security manager. This isn't really as big a deal because I was a warden. What that entails is being the liaison between the safety and security manager and the people of my region in case of political uprising or natural disaster or anything that could potentially lead to us needing to consolidate or evacuate. Us being ready, us being planned and prepared was something that had always been a part of my everyday life, and we had already been through what looked like it could be a huge situation of political upheaval through business I'm not going to go into. Point being, it was normal to be getting updates like this. On the way home from that training that afternoon, I received a call. Because of COVID-19, volunteers would be allowed to take interrupted service. Interrupted service basically means you're allowed to go home maintaining all of your benefits because of an emergency. Basically, Peace Corps was giving us an out if we wanted to take it. He was telling us before they made the announcement public for everybody in Peace Corps the Gambia because we were the wardens. We knew it was serious, but serious in the context of us and our work in the Gambia, but this is the first time that I actually considered that we might be sent home. During the next day, Peace Corps worldwide group chats were blowing up with talk of, are we going to be sent home? Are we going to be sent home? And the sort of fear set in that this might be happening, but in my head I still thought it seems ridiculous that we would be evacuated here in the Gambia anytime soon, for the simple reason that there had been no confirmed cases in the Gambia, and there had only been a few in Senegal, and they had been leapt on like that because the Senegalese healthcare professionals are all stars of this pandemic. That could be its own topic there, how well they handled things, especially compared to us in the United States, but that's its own tangent. In any case, the chances of us going home seemed fairly unlikely. That is until Sunday morning when I awoke to your text saying, "Nick, I'm so sorry." You knew before anybody in my country knew we were being evacuated. It was public before any of us knew. Director Jody Olsen, head of Peace Corps Worldwide, had posted online, volunteers worldwide, all 7,000 plus across 61 countries were being evacuated. And at that point, we still didn't know when it was going to be. We didn't know if it was going to be in a few days, in a few weeks, and then around 10 o'clock that morning, we found we had to be out the next day. After spending more than a year integrating into the community, we had to be out in 24 hours. We had to say all our goodbyes, wrap up all our projects, pack, and be out, ASAP. And that meant for a lot of people leaving projects undone. Personally, I was really frustrated by this because I was very much in the camp, in the school of thought, that the pandemic was a time that we needed to be there. The previous realizations of how serious it was, that the fact that the pandemic was most likely going to make it to the Gambia at some point, made me realize we really need to be preparing our communities to help mitigate it, to help make sure that these people we'd been living with were not going to get it, or would be mitigated as much as possible. Especially given that hand-washing programs are one of the big things we had resources and training to do, to put on. So I wasn't just going to tuck my tail between my legs. I spent most of my day dealing with Warden business, liaising between the head of security and the other people in my region, making sure they knew what was up. And also building a badong tap, giving my counterparts more resources to make more badong taps, and getting soap to the school and health post, because I wanted them to be prepared. These were projects that I was going to work on, and I would have worked on more had we had the time, but I wasn't just going to let it do nothing, because it seems wrong in the face of there would be no health volunteers, there would be no healthcare period if everybody was healthy all the time, if there was no sickness. So in the face of one of the biggest sicknesses, leaving just seems wrong and fundamentally anti what we were there for. It felt like looking Peace Corps critics in the eye and saying, yes, you're right, we are voluntourists. Now, disclaimer, they did this for liability reasons, but personally, I really didn't feel comfortable with the idea of putting my safety above those of the people in my community. I knew there would be risks coming here. Some of them were ridiculous. I was scared of hippos. You know how many hippos I've seen since I've come to the Gambia? The entire time I was there. So I did what I could in the time I was given, and then spent the whole night packing, which honestly was a good move anyway, because even when I finished, I still couldn't sleep. And judging by WhatsApp and how many people were texting at 4 in the morning, none of them could sleep either. This happened on the 16th, and on the 17th, that morning I said my last goodbyes, went to Combo, and we spent what felt like a week of rushing our close of service, the bureaucratic work and whatnot. And then finally on the 20th, I was on the last bus to the last plane out, and that was that. After leaving the country and throughout this past year, there's a lot that I could talk about, but honestly not a lot that I want to. At least not here, not now, and not in this context. Not this video. Since even before leaving, they've talked about reinstatement, and I still do want to reinstate, though the deadline keeps getting pushed farther and farther back, and it's gotten to the point where it's been a year. For most of 2020, I feel like it was my singular focus, my singular goal for the future, but at this point, I've realized it can't be. There's still definitely more I want to talk about in videos like this. There's a lot of the Gambia. There's definitely videos I had planned but never made. I'm gonna say maybe, hopefully, but I'm also not gonna make any promises. It took a year to make this one. While we're on that note, part of the reason it took a year, when I got back to the States, when I got to my sister's house, I tried to make it pretty much the next day, but I absolutely could not focus on it. My ADD had been worse than, honestly, in memory. I couldn't even focus on watching YouTube videos all the way through. I was so scatterbrained for about a week after that. Probably a nice cocktail of a week of not sleeping and experiencing vivid and insane emotions across the spectrum. I spent a lot of my time in Peace Corps with my worst fear being sent home for some reason. That was the worst thing I could imagine. And it's made me come to realize that's one of the big ways you find joy in life is by, well, having purpose. So my thoughts are, for whatever future career paths you do or I do or anyone does, one of the things that really should be considered is purpose. Also, to add a note, even if I can't go back as a Peace Corps volunteer, I intend to go back at some point in my life. Whether it just be for vacation or some other work opportunity, I intend to be back across that ocean saying hi to some of the people that I became very good friends with. And now I'm gonna say what I always say. Maybe for the last time, maybe not the last time. Bane again. Until next time. Which is really ironic and
I'm doing a video. Is that okay?